He lived a quiet life in a crowded city where mornings began before the sun and nights ended too late. He woke each day with the same routine and the same tired hope that something good might find him. He worked long hours and returned to a small room that held little more than a bed, a table, and a window that looked toward other windows. He did not complain. He believed life was meant to be steady and honest, even when it felt empty. She lived not far away, though their paths had never crossed. Her days were filled with care for others. She worked with patience and kindness and carried a gentle strength that people often missed. She smiled icily, but kept her worries close. She had learned to be strong without asking for attention. Her evenings were quiet too, filled with simple meals and thoughts that drifted as the city lights came on. They met on a day that did not feel important at first. The weather was calm, and the streets moved like usual. People passed without noticing each other. He stopped by a small place to rest after work. She was there doing the same. Their eyes met only for a moment, then looked away. Neither felt a spark or a sign. Only a calm sense of ease settled in the room. They spoke, because the silence felt friendly. He asked a small question, and she answered with warmth. Their voices were soft and slow, like they had known each other before. They talked about work and daily life and small plans. Neither tried to impress the other. There was no need there. Words felt safe when they parted. They did not exchange promises. They only shared a brief smile and went back to their lives, yet something had changed. He noticed the city felt lighter. She walked home with a quiet smile. She did not question days. Past and chance brought them together again. Then again, each meeting felt natural, like a habit forming without effort. They began to look forward to those moments. They shared simple stories and quiet laughs. They listened more than they spoke. They learned how the other thought and what made the other pause. He noticed how she cared for small details, like the way she folded paper or waited before crossing a street. She noticed how he listened with full attention and never rushed her words. These small things mattered more than grand gestures. Their bond grew without noise. They did not rush to name it. They only felt it growing stronger, like roots finding water beneath the ground. Friends around them saw nothing special. They saw too people spending time together, nothing more. Yet in those shared moments, something rare was forming. Trust began to settle between them. They shared worries they had never spoken aloud. He talked about his fear of living a life that left no mark. She spoke about the weight she carried for others and how tired she felt at night. They did not try to fix each other. They simply stayed. Walked together through familiar streets and made them feel new. Silence between them felt full, not awkward. They learned the comfort of simply being near. Each day added another layer of understanding. Started to plan his days around the chance of seeing her. She found herself smiling at messages before they arrived. Neither said love. They did not need to. The feeling was present in the way they waited and the way they cared. One evening, they sat together as the city slowed. The air felt gentle and time seemed to pause. He realized that happiness did not need noise or proof. It could exist quietly. Between two people who chose to show up, she felt the same. Though she did not name it, she only knew that life felt kinder when he was near. She felt seen without being judged and heard without being corrected. Their love did not arrive with drama. It arrived like a soft light, slowly filling a room. They did not know what future waited for them. They only knew that something honest had begun. This was the start of a love that felt ordinary to the world but meant everything to them, a love built on small moments, shared silence, and the simple choice to care. They did not know then how life would test them. They did not know how strong love would need to be. They only knew that in a busy world, they had found a place of calm in each other's life. Did not change suddenly after their bond grew. It changed slowly in ways that were hard to notice at first. Days became fuller, and nights felt shorter. They continued their routines. But now, there was someone else in their thoughts from morning to sleep. He still woke early and worked long hours, but the tiredness felt lighter. He carried quiet excitement through the day. He waited for moments to share something small about his life. Even the most ordinary detail felt meaningful when he knew she would listen. She felt the same. Her days were still filled with care and responsibility. But she no longer felt alone inside when things became heavy. She reminded herself that someone understood her, without needing explanations. That thought gave her strength. They began to spend more time together, not in grand ways, only simple walks, shared meals, and long talks that drifted into silence. They learned each other's habits. He learned how she needed a moment before speaking when something bothered her. She learned how he became quiet when worries grew too loud. With time, the outside world started to press in. Family expectations, work stress, and financial limits slowly entered their space. People around them began to ask questions about the future, questions they were not ready to answer. They smiled and changed the subject, but the weight of those questions stayed. He felt pressure to become more than he was. He worried that love needed security and stability he wanted to give her. A life without struggle, that fear followed him everywhere. She carried her own worries. She felt torn between caring for those who depended on her and building something new for herself. She feared choosing one thing would mean failing another. They did not argue loudly. Their conflicts were quiet. They showed themselves in pauses and unspoken thoughts. Sometimes he would grow distant, trying to solve everything alone. Sometimes she would withdraw, afraid of becoming a burden. Still, they returned to each other. Each time distance appeared, they found their way back through patience and honesty. They learned that love was not about perfection. It was about choosing understanding again. And again, one evening, they sat together as rain softened. The city sounds, the mood was calm but heavy. He spoke about his fears of not being enough. She listened without interrupting. She did not offer easy answers. She only stayed close, letting him feel heard. Later, she shared her own doubts. She spoke about feeling trapped by responsibility and afraid of disappointing others. He held her hand and reminded her that her worth was not measured by sacrifice alone. These moments deepened their bond, yet they also showed how fragile happiness could be. Life did not slow down to protect them. Bills needed to be paid. Choices needed to be made. Time moved forward without asking if they were ready. He took on more work, hoping to secure a better future. This left him exhausted and distant. She tried to be patient but missed the closeness they once shared. Silence began to last longer than before. She stayed strong during the day, but cried quietly at night. He noticed her sadness, but felt powerless to fix it. Both believed they were protecting the other. While slowly hurting themselves, they still shared love, but it now carried worry. They smiled in public and saved their doubts for the dark. Friends saw them together and assumed everything was fine. No one saw the effort behind each moment. Despite the strain they held on to, hope, they believed love could endure if they tried harder. They promised themselves that this difficult phase would pass. Yet deep inside, both felt a quiet fear that life was changing them faster than love could hold them. Together, this part of their story was not dramatic. It was real. It showed how love can be strong, yet tested by ordinary struggles. The kind of struggles that do not look dangerous, but slowly shape the heart. They did not know then that something bigger waited ahead, something that would push their love beyond patience and understanding. They only knew they were trying their best to hold on. The change came quietly at first, like a shadow moving across a wall. They did not notice it until it stayed longer than expected. Days felt heavier, and nights felt restless. The closeness they once shared was still there, but it felt stretched thin by worries they could not escape. He started to feel pain in his body that he ignored at first. He told himself it was only tiredness from work. He pushed through each day, believing strength meant silence. He did not want to worry her. He wanted to be the one who stayed steady. She noticed his silence growing longer. His smiles felt forced. His eyes carried a tired look that did not fade even after rest. She asked him gently if something was wrong. He said he was fine and tried to change the subject. She wanted to believe him, so she did. Time moved on, and the pain did not leave. It grew sharper and more demanding. Still, he kept going until one day his strength failed him. He had to stop and face what he feared. A visit to a quiet place brought answers that felt unreal. His body was asking for care and time he did not feel he had. He came back changed. Not in appearance, but in spirit. He carried a truth that felt too heavy to share. He feared that speaking it would change everything. He feared becoming a burden more than the pain itself. She sensed the distance growing. She felt locked out of a part of his life. She wondered if love was slipping away, or if something deeper was happening. Her heart stayed restless as questions filled her thoughts. One evening, as the city slowed, he finally spoke. His voice was calm, but his hands shook. He told her about his health In the uncertain road ahead, he did not ask for pity. He only shared the truth he had been hiding. She listened quietly, her heart raced, but her face stayed gentle. She felt fear, but also clarity. Love was no longer simple moments and shared laughter. It was now choice and courage. She reached for his hand and told him. She was not afraid of standing beside him. Her words were steady, even as her heart trembled. She meant them fully, but life did not pause for love. Work demands increased, bills waited, and family expectations pressed harder. He worried that staying together would pull her into a future filled with struggle and pain. That thought haunted him. He began to pull away, not out of lack of love, but from fear of hurting her. He spoke less, shared less, and spent more time alone, believing distance would protect her. She felt the shift deeply. She tried to reach him, but felt him slipping through her hand. She questioned herself, wondering if love was enough when the future felt so uncertain. The space between them grew wider with each passing day. Not from anger or betrayal, but from fear and silence. Both suffered quietly, believing they were doing what was right. One day, he made a decision that broke his own heart. He believed letting go was the only way to save her from pain. He spoke words that felt wrong even as he said them. He told her she deserved a different life. She listened in shock. Her world felt unsteady. She wanted to fight, but saw the resolve in his eyes. She realized he had already decided in his heart. They parted without anger. Only tears and unfinished words remained. Love was still there, strong and aching, but life had pulled them apart. This moment became the turning point, the one that would shape everything that followed. They walked away carrying the same love, but on separate paths, not knowing if they would ever cross again. After they parted, life went on, as it always does, but nothing felt the same. Their days moved forward, filled with routines and obligations, yet both carried the echo of what had been. They went through the motions, but inside they felt hollow spaces that no one could fill. He returned to his work, but each task felt heavier. The quiet moments reminded him of her. He remembered her smile, her soft voice, and the way she listened without judgment. He tried to focus, but his mind wandered to what could have been. She stayed busy caring for others and herself, yet the nights brought long thoughts. She replayed their conversations and the moments they had shared. Her heart ached for what was lost, but she held on to the memory with a strange tenderness. Neither reached out at first, believing it was better to leave the past alone. They feared reopening wounds. They feared admitting that love had not disappeared even when distance separated them. Time moved slowly in the lonely spaces between them. They noticed little things that reminded them of the other: a song on the radio, a familiar street, a quiet gesture from a stranger. They felt a tug in their hearts that could not be explained. He thought of her in moments he had not expected. He wanted to call, but stopped. He feared disrupting her life or revealing the depth of his own longing. She thought of him often too. She found herself smiling at memories and crying at quiet thoughts of what could have been. She wanted to send a message, but feared she would appear weak or desperate. They both carried the weight of love that refused to die. It stayed hidden behind normal days and polite smiles. It lived in memories and silent wishes. It existed without proof and without need for response. Letters, never sent, were written. In notebooks kept hidden, they spoke of fears, hopes, regrets, and love that was still strong. They wrote to themselves as much as they wrote to each other in the quiet moments. They sometimes imagined what would happen if they met again. Would the world fall back into place, or would time have created an unbridgeable distance? They did not know, but the thought comforted them in equal measure. Friends noticed a change in them. Each had a quiet longing that others could not understand. They did not explain. It was personal, private, and sacred. They carried the past with them silently as part of their daily life. He tried to rebuild his strength and health slowly. He made small changes to live longer and more fully, yet each improvement felt hollow. Without her near, she existed in the space he was healing. She focused on small joys and accomplishments. She celebrated victories quietly and suffered disappointments alone. She felt stronger in some ways, yet weaker in ways only he could have understood. Did not need each other to survive, but they needed the memory of each other to live fully. The love they had formed had become part of their identity. Years passed and life continued to test them in other ways. Work, stress, family obligations, and new challenges arose, yet both carried a quiet resilience that had been born from love and loss. They never stopped caring for each other from afar. Each hoped the other was safe, happy, and healthy. They prayed silently for each other in ways no one else knew. The story of their love was no longer one of presence, but of quiet endurance. It was a love that refused to fade even in separation. It was a love that survived through memory, hope, and respect for each other's life paths in these years. They learned the most difficult lesson about love: it does not always need to be seen to exist. It does not always need to be spoken to survive. True love can live in absence and still shape a person's life profoundly. Years passed, and the city changed, yet some feelings remained unchanged. They had lived separate lives, carrying their memories quietly and moving forward as best they could. Each held a part of the other in their hearts, even as new routines took shape. He often thought of her when small reminders appeared: a familiar street, a shared joke, remembered a smell that drifted past. He felt bittersweet joy and deep longing at the same time. He had built a life, but had never fully felt complete without her presence, she thought. Of him in quiet moments, too, she felt gratitude for the time they had shared and sadness for the time that had been lost. She wondered if he was happy, if he remembered her as she remembered him. One day fate brought them unexpectedly close, though. Not directly together, they saw each other from afar in a place neither had planned to be. They did not speak at first. They only observed, silently recognizing the same depth of feeling in each other's eyes. In that moment, memories flooded back. The shared laughter, the quiet walks, the gentle touches, and the tender conversations that had never needed words. They realized that even time and distance could not erase what they had built. They approached slowly with caution. Each step felt both familiar and strange. They exchanged a look that carried years of emotion. Without a single word, the past and present existed in that gaze. Finally spoke softly. She listened without interruption. His words carried both apology and admiration. He expressed that he had never stopped caring and that he had always hoped she was well. She felt tears rise, but kept her voice steady, acknowledging the love they had shared. They walked together slowly, not rushing. They did not try to reclaim lost years or relive every moment. They only existed together in the present, appreciating the connection that had endured. The city around them moved as usual, but for a moment it felt still. They talked about their separate lives, the struggles they had faced, and the growth they had achieved. They laughed at old memories and cried quietly over what could not be recovered. They allowed themselves to feel fully, without fear. The realization came slowly that love does not always mean possession or constant presence. It means care, loyalty, respect, and impact. It lives in memories and choices, and in the quiet hope for another's happiness. They decided not to return to the past exactly as it was, but to honor it. They would remain part of each others' lives in ways that were possible and healthy. They knew that true love can exist even without traditional closeness. Days turned into weeks, and they continued to meet occasionally. Seeing each other brought comfort and joy. They did not need grand gestures or public acknowledgement. Their love existed in simple moments, and the understanding that they had been changed forever by each other. They learned that parting had taught them resilience and patience. It had shown them the depth of care and the meaning of sacrifice. They respected each other's space and choices while holding on to the love that had never fully faded. City continued its rhythm, and they moved alongside it, feeling more complete, though not fully together. Their hearts carried the mark of a love that was rare and unbreakable. Even in silence and distance, they remained connected in time. They accepted that not all love stories end in constant presence. Some end in memory, some continue quietly, some teach lessons that shape a person forever. They embraced the truth that love is more than moments. It is impact and endurance. This was the final lesson of their story. That love can survive hardship, separation, and the passage of time. It can live in memory and hope, and it can leave an indelible mark on the heart. Even when life changes the circumstances, love remains a guiding presence that transforms those who feel it deeply. Even after the years of living apart and finding ways to move forward, the story of their love continued to shape their lives in quiet ways. Both carried memories that felt like a gentle weight inside them. They had learned how to live with the absence of each other while still feeling the presence of love in every choice and thought. He woke each morning thinking of the lessons their love had taught him. He approached each day with a sense of purpose that came from knowing how much depth life could hold. He treated others with more patience and understanding because he remembered how she had listened to his fears without judgment. She found strength in the love that had been part of her life. She handled challenges with quiet confidence. She smiled at small victories and allowed herself to grieve privately when things became heavy. She understood that love could be present even when the person was not physically near. Both continued to grow in their own ways. Their paths did not cross often, but they carried the imprint of each other everywhere. They wrote letters that were never sent, notes tucked away in notebooks, and memories replayed silently in the mind. They had learned how to treasure connection without needing constant reassurance. The world around them changed constantly. The city streets evolved with new faces and new buildings, yet the lessons of patience, endurance, and silent support remained with them through jobs, friends, and family. They carried the subtle strength of a love that had never ended. He thought of her in unexpected moments, A song drifting through the air, a shared sight in a park, or the sound of laughter that reminded him of her voice. Each reminder brought warmth and gentle longing, not pain. He had learned to live with the ache of missing her without allowing it to break him. She found herself noticing small things that reminded her of him. A habit she shared, a smell that drifted past, or a phrase she had heard him say years ago. These sparks brought smiles and tears. She welcomed both, knowing that true love can exist even without physical presence. They each learned to love themselves through the love they had once shared. They understood that caring deeply for another person could teach patience, resilience, and compassion. These lessons shaped how they moved through the world and how they treated others. Occasionally their paths came closer. They did not always recognize the moments at first, yet sometimes in a crowded street or a quiet cafe they would see a fleeting shadow of familiarity. The heart would respond even before the mind understood. These moments were not always dramatic. They were simple and quiet, yet powerful. Each glance or shared recognition reminded them of a bond that had endured all tests of life, distance, and time. They felt a sense of completeness in knowing that love had left a permanent mark on both hearts. They continued to pursue their lives independently, yet the invisible thread of connection remained. They supported each other in their minds and prayers without needing to intervene directly. They had learned that love can exist in absence just as strongly as in presence. He remembered their first walks together, the small talks and gentle silences. He smiled at the memory and felt gratitude. He understood that love is not always about staying together. It is about presence in moments. It is about caring without conditions, and it is about leaving an impact that shapes a lifetime. She remembered the times they'd shared meals, the quiet evenings, and the small comforts they had given each other. She felt grateful for the depth of the experience. She realized that the lessons from love had prepared her for challenges and joys that followed in life. Even when other relationships entered their lives, neither could forget the connection that had been formative and transformative. They learned to honor it without comparison or regret. Each experience was seen as a part of growth, informed by a love that had been real and profound. They had learned to accept that life does not always follow plans or expectations. Yet love can still exist powerfully and transformatively. True love does not require constant presence or grand gestures. It exists in respect, loyalty, care, memory, and enduring hope. They occasionally shared a brief message from afar, a silent check-in, or an unspoken acknowledgement through mutual friends. Even this small recognition felt enough to honor what had been. They understood that love could survive in unconventional ways, in quiet nights. Both reflected on how different their lives would have been without that love. They felt gratitude and acceptance. They did not desire to reclaim the past, but only to honor it and carry its lessons forward. He approached new experiences with a sense of hope and caution, understood how deep care could exist without being physically present. He applied the lessons of empathy and patience to friendships, work, and family relationships. She embraced new opportunities and relationships with an understanding of love that transcended immediate gratification. She knew that true connection is not always visible, yet it can shape hearts and choices profoundly. Years continued to pass. They aged and changed, Yet the quiet love that had started so many years ago remained part of their inner world. It influenced how they laughed, cried, and interacted with the people around them they had discovered the most difficult. Yet rewarding lesson of all that love does not always end with distance or separation, that it can exist quietly in memory and choice. That it can teach resilience, patience, and empathy, even in absence, that it can leave a permanent mark that transforms. Life even at the end of long days, they often found themselves thinking of each other. They felt a gentle warmth and peace, knowing that some bonds are never broken. They understood that love does not need closure to be real, it only needs presence. In the heart, in this way, their story continued beyond daily life, beyond years, and beyond ordinary understanding. It became a testament to the endurance of the human heart, the quiet power of connection, and the way how true love shapes people forever time. Continued its quiet rhythm, and their lives moved forward in ways both ordinary and profound. They had long accepted that love does not always follow the paths we imagine, and yet it can continue shaping hearts quietly and powerfully, even after. Years apart, the lessons of connection and care remained with them. He began noticing small signs of life that reminded him of her. A particular scent, a melody carried by the wind, a street corner where they had once walked together. These moments brought both joy and a gentle ache, but they also reminded him of the depth of feeling that had never faded. To notice these reminders in subtle ways, a familiar gesture, in a stranger, a phrase he had once said lingering in memory, or a view of the cityscape that brought back quiet smiles. Each moment reinforced the truth that love does not vanish, even when distance separates hearts. They continued their routines, fully engaged in daily life, yet there was always a layer of awareness that they had experienced something extraordinary. That bond shaped their choices, their patience, their empathy, and their approach to people around them. They had become more understanding, more careful, and more intentional because of it. Occasionally they thought of reaching out, but each time hesitated. They were no longer afraid of the past or feelings, but they had learned that timing matters, and some connections need to remain sacred in memory to preserve their power. Even without contact, they carried each other through life, silently supporting one another from afar through thoughts, prayers, and unseen acknowledgement. This invisible presence gave them strength in moments of fear or uncertainty, and reminded them that love transcends physical closeness. He remembered the quiet evenings they had shared, the way conversations flowed naturally, without force, the comfort of shared silences and the small details that made her presence warm and grounding. He smiled at these recollections and felt gratitude for having experienced love so profoundly. She remembered the way he listened intently to her words without interruption, the subtle care in his gestures, the way he respected her boundaries and offered reassurance simply by being there. She recognized that these lessons had guided her through later relationships and challenges in life. Life brought new challenges and new responsibilities, yet the inner wisdom gained from their love helped them navigate uncertainty they faced. Obstacles with calm and thoughtfulness. They understood that true care does not always involve solving problems immediately, but being present and patient in moments of solitude. Both reflected on the enduring impact of their connection. They realized that love shapes more than emotions. It influences perspectives, decisions, and growth. They were both wiser and gentler because of what they had shared. They encountered reminders in unexpected places, a shared favorite book in a store, a melody on the radio, or the sight of someone who moved in a familiar way. Each encounter triggered memory and gratitude rather than longing or regret. It was a quiet celebration of the depth of their connection. Their friends noticed subtle changes to the patience and kindness they carried were evident to those around them, yet few understood the quiet force behind these traits. The love they had experienced in their youth had transformed them into more compassionate individuals. He often thought about what he had learned from loving her, from patience with absence to courage and vulnerability, from valuing presence to understanding the importance of silent support. The lessons guided his actions and his interactions with others. Each choice reflected a part of her influence even years later. She often reflected on the ways love had changed her own approach to life. From accepting uncertainty to embracing the beauty of small moments, from understanding the quiet strength in caring for others to learning the importance of self-compassion. The wisdom gained became part of her character even as life introduced. New people, new experiences, and new responsibilities, neither ever forgot the lessons of enduring love. They understood that true love is not about possession or constant contact, but about influence, patience, and respect. It leaves a lasting mark on the heart and the way life is approached, in quiet nights both sometimes imagined. What life would have been like if circumstances had allowed them to stay together, yet there was no bitterness, only appreciation for having known something so real and transformative. They acknowledged that love does not always need to follow conventional paths to be meaningful. They learned that presence is not always physical. Connection can exist invisibly in the heart and mind, that caring without interference can be as powerful as constant companionship. They had mastered the art of loving deeply without needing to control. Outcomes life continued to unfold with its mixture of joy and difficulty, yet the foundation of their growth remained rooted in that early bond. The experiences had created resilience, empathy, wisdom, and patience, all of which guided them through subsequent challenges. Their love story, though unconventional and often silent, became a source of inspiration for themselves and for those who noticed subtle changes in their behavior. The quiet strength, the gentle patience, and the depth of understanding reflected a love that had endured without fading even. When surrounded by new friends, colleagues, and family, the essence of their connection was present. It shaped decisions small and large. It influenced how they nurtured relationships, how they handled disappointments, and celebrated victories. It was a guiding force that remained invisible, yet undeniable. They both understood finally that love does not always need reunion to remain true, does not always require proximity to be powerful. It lives in memory, in choice, in resilience, and in the quiet hope that the other is well and happy. This understanding brought peace and closure in its own gentle ways. Moved on, yet the influence of their love remained constant. They had grown into fully realized people with lives rich in experience. Yet both carried a gentle echo of the bond they had shared. It was a reminder that love, once felt profoundly, never truly leaves the heart. They had become living proof that love is enduring. It survives hardship, separation, and time. It shapes character and guides choices. It provides strength and teaches compassion. It does not always need to be visible to exist and to matter deeply. Life moved forward with its usual pace, yet the presence of their love continued to shape them quietly. They had learned to navigate existence, carrying a connection that could not be touched but was always felt deep within. Their days were filled with work, responsibilities, and small joys, but each day carried subtle reminders of the bond that had shaped them. Moved through mornings with a calmness that had not existed before, his decisions were guided by patience and consideration. He noticed the small details that others overlooked, and he offered quiet support to those who needed it. These habits had been born from the care and understanding he had learned through his love for her. She approached each day with a gentle strength. She listened deeply. She cared without expectation. She had learned how to carry both her own burdens and the burdens of others with grace. Her life had been shaped by the lessons of love and absence, teaching her empathy, patience, and quiet courage. Even as the world around them changed rapidly, they found stability in the memories of what they had shared. Old streets, familiar songs, small routines that reminded them of each other gave them comfort and a sense of continuity. Life could be chaotic, but within themselves they carried something unchanging. They did not see each other often, but the bond remained strong. Messages were rarely exchanged. Visits were few, yet they felt each other in thought and in prayer. The love they shared had taught them that connection does not always require words or proximity. It exists silently in the heart. He thought of her in moments of reflection, recalling their walks, their laughter, and the quiet conversations that had once filled ordinary days with meaning. Each memory was cherished, and rather than bringing sorrow, it provided warmth and clarity about what love truly meant. She remembered the ways he had made her feel safe and valued, the way he had listened, and the way he had given her space to be herself. These memories guided her in interacting with others and in how she approached life. She understood the subtle power of love that is steady, patient, and enduring. Challenges continued to come in their lives. Work stress, family responsibilities, and personal struggles arose frequently. Yet they handled these with the resilience that had been built during their years apart. They'd learned how love could give strength even when the person was not near. They sometimes reflected on what life would have been like if circumstances had been different. These reflections were not filled with regret, but with understanding and appreciation for what had been learned. They recognized that love shapes life profoundly, even if it does not always follow expected paths. Small reminders of each other appeared. In unexpected ways, a song on the radio, a familiar gesture, a phrase in a conversation. These moments triggered gratitude and quiet longing. They realized that love has a lasting impact that can continue to influence decisions, emotions, and perspectives. For years, friends noticed their changed demeanor, their patience, understanding, and gentle strength stood out to those around them, though the reasons were private. Their lives radiated the lessons of enduring love. They were calmer, kinder, and more thoughtful, because they had learned how deeply love could affect a person. He often paused to think about the lessons he had learned from patience in waiting, to acceptance of uncertainty, from quiet support, to understanding that love can endure without constant proof. These lessons informed his actions and made him a better presence in the lives of those he touched. She often reflected on her own growth from self-compassion to understanding the power of silent presence, from patience to acceptance. She carried the wisdom gained from their love into all areas of life, allowing her to respond with care and empathy to challenges and people around her, even when new relationships appeared in their lives. The memories and lessons of their shared love remained intact. They had learned that love is not about possession, but about impact and understanding. It can exist without being constantly visible, yet leave permanent marks on the heart. They had learned that presence is not always physical. Love can exist invisibly in actions, thoughts, and intentions. They understood that caring without interference is sometimes the greatest expression of affection. True love could be silent, enduring, and transformative. In quiet moments, they remembered together the small gestures that had meant so much. A hand held for a second, a look that conveyed understanding, a quiet presence that reassured without words. These memories reminded them that love is often found in subtlety, rather than grand expressions. Life continued to unfold, bringing new experiences and responsibilities, yet the essence of their connection remained a steady guide in both their lives. They approached challenges with calm, joy with openness, and sorrow with patience. They knew that the love they had shared had fundamentally shaped their character. They occasionally imagined what might have happened if they had stayed closer or chosen differently, yet these imaginings brought no sadness. It's only gratitude for the lessons learned and for the depth of care experienced. They understood that love does not need physical reunion to be meaningful or transformative. They applied the lessons of their love in how they interacted with others, how they nurtured friendships, how they offered patience and kindness, how they celebrated joy and handled disappointment. Each action reflected the influence of a bond that had been deeply formative. In moments of solitude, they carried the quiet presence of each other. They felt strength, warmth, and guidance from memories. They had internalized love in a way that allowed it to live within them continuously, shaping decisions, emotions, and the way they treated those around them. They discovered that love endures not only in memory, but in how it shapes choices, behavior, and outlook on life. They realized that a deep, formative love continues to teach lessons and inspire growth long after physical separation or absence. The years moved forward and they aged, yet the core of their connection remained unchanged. The bond that had begun quietly and grown steadily continued to influence the way they lived, loved, and understood the world around them. They carried an inner strength born of enduring, invisible connection. Their story was no longer one of daily presence, but of continuous influence. They understood that true love is patient, is quiet, transformative, and enduring. It survives challenges, distance, and time, shaping lives in ways subtle yet profound, leaving permanent marks that define character, perspective, and heart.